And welcome back to the deep dive. It's Wednesday evening, and if you're an educator or an administrator, I bet you've spent the last year just, I don't know, drowning in policy buzzwords.
Oh, that's definitely true. Everything from top-level design to next-generation education ecosystems.
Exactly. I mean, these phrases, they sound so grand, but the question every single teacher is asking is, does this just mean more paperwork? Is this another layer of complexity on my already impossible workload?
And that anxiety is completely justified. Our mission for this deep dive is really to act as interpreters. We've taken all this extensive source material, which covers everything from huge national strategies like cultivating excellent engineers and educational equity policies, all the way down to individual teacher growth. And we're boiling it down.
Okay, so what's the roadmap for us?
We've pulled out three key threads. First, the strategic logic. Why is this wave of reform absolutely necessary right now? Second, the personal journey. How do we help teachers break free from the chains of standardized testing? And third, the future classroom. What should we actually be teaching in the age of AI?
Let's start with that massive equity challenge, the one putting so much pressure on school leaders, revitalizing high schools outside the big cities. I mean, administrators are feeling such a squeeze. They have to retain local students and raise quality with, limited resources. It feels like demanding a marathon runner sprint without proper training.
It is a brutal reality. But we have to anchor ourselves in the data to understand why this is, well, non-negotiable for the entire system. We're talking about close to 60% of all public high school students nationwide being enrolled in these county or regional schools.
Wow, 60%. So that's the majority of the system, not some niche issue.
Precisely. These schools aren't just supporting players. They are the absolute cornerstone of rural education. They directly impact regional development. It's not about, local optimization. It's about shoring up the entire foundation of quality and access.
I understand the gravity of it. I do.
Right.
But the policy language often uses these terms like systemic design and comprehensive deployment. It sounds so abstract.
Practically speaking, for an administrator on the ground, what's the concrete action plan?
It really boils down to optimizing two things: mechanisms and resources. The core focus is stopping malicious competition, specifically that widespread practice of talent poaching.
Talent poaching.
Yeah, so it means strictly enforcing local enrollment boundaries to make sure that these regional high schools can maintain a stable pool of talented students.
So you're basically building a student moat around these local schools to protect their base talent? Exactly. And the second mechanism is strengthening talent flow. This involves incentivizing experienced, high-performing educators from city centers to rotate or flow down into the county schools to act as mentors and leaders.
That makes a lot of sense. So you solve the student quality problem by securing the base, and then you tackle teaching quality by circulating expertise. Are we actually seeing this work anywhere?
We are. We have some excellent examples. In one region, they launched a strong county school project, which rigidly enforced local enrollment. And that meant the top middle school graduates could choose to stay local, which it boosted institutional confidence overnight.
Right.
And in another region, they spent 7 consecutive years making the expansion and upgrade of public high schools a top priority. They just kept optimizing the resource layout until quality schools made up over 91% of their system.
91%.
What this really demonstrates is that revitalization isn't something a county school can do alone. It requires coordinated top-down resource allocation from all levels, local, regional, and central. Once you stabilize the resources in the student body, then that shift from just focusing on test scores to focusing on holistic development actually becomes possible.
It's a huge, complex challenge, but at least those models show there is a pathway forward. So, okay, let's pivot to the individual teacher. We're fixing the external environment, but what about that internal struggle? So many educators I know describe themselves as dancing in chains, caught between the ideal of holistic education and the brutal reality of testing pressure.
That tension is absolutely universal. And our source material cite a really insightful educator who asks, why do some teachers actually cling to those chains?
Oh, I'm a little hesitant to hear the answer, but go on.
Because in their words, a strictly test-focused education is often the simplest, easiest, and most convenient path. For a lot of teachers who are used to relying heavily on textbooks and teaching guides, the demands of new curriculum-like interdisciplinary projects, it feels like a massive threat. It's just easier to retreat into that old, familiar comfort zone.
That hits home. It's a professional comfort zone trap that's just disguised as high standards.
It is. And this brings up a really critical clarification we have to make. The difference between testing and test-focused education. As long as we have standardized assessments, we will always have to respond to tests. That's an important, unavoidable component of showing success.
But the danger is when that response becomes the entire purpose.
Exactly. Test-focused education is that narrow, eliminationist model that prioritizes only scores. Think of it this way. We'd criticize someone for eating only salt at dinner, not for the act of eating salt itself. Quality education includes test results, but it's infinitely more than just test results.
So how does a teacher break that narrow, score-obsessed mentality? I mean, that requires a complete shift in professional identity, which I think leads us to this concept of the 3 levels of professional mastery.
This is the perfect framework for that kind of professional development journey.
So level 1 is pursuing external success. This means chasing the titles, the rankings, administrative praise. It's necessary for survival, but if you stop there, you just risk burning out and losing why you started teaching in the first place.
Right. Survival is foundational. But true, sustained professional value only begins when you step up to level 2.
And level 2 is pursuing internal growth. This is where the focus turns inward. You start reading, writing, researching, really focusing on being accountable to your classroom, to your students. Teachers at this level are actively thinking about how to transform themselves.
They're transitioning from living for others' approval to living for their own professional standard. But level 2 can be unstable.
Oh, it can be so unstable because as soon as you try to grow or innovate, you face skepticism, disruption, even mockery from people still stuck back in level 1. You need real resilience to get to the top.
Which brings us to level 3, maturity. The mature teacher has this powerful sense of self-identity. They are no longer defined by external evaluation. Their focus shifts to innovation, to the emotional and mental growth of their students, and, the enrichment of their own professional spirit.
Living with depth and confidence, they genuinely love teaching, and they're content to be effective, ordinary teachers. That sense of identity is the ultimate armor against all that outside pressure.
It's a profound intrinsic reward that, no promotion or award can ever replace.
But to support that mature teacher, the school's management and evaluation system also has to mature, right? If the assessment yardstick still only measures short-term scores, how can we expect them to break those chains?
That's the critical infrastructure piece. The traditional sort of KPI-driven performance review logic is particularly damaging when you're dealing with teacher rotation and exchange programs.
Why specifically with rotation?
Because traditional reviews, breaking down metrics, quantitative ranking, linking it all to bonuses, they incentivize short-term results.
Huh.
So a teacher rotating into a new, maybe under-resourced school either engages in this hyper-competition, furiously chasing test score improvements, or they just feel overwhelmed and check out.
I see.
They focus on results that look good quickly, and they ignore the long-term emotional and moral development of the students.
So the evaluation system is actually undermining the core goal of the entire exchange program.
Exactly. We have to transition to a value-added assessment logic.
Yep.
The core idea is simple. You look at progress from the starting point. You focus on vertical growth, the value added, rather than a horizontal comparison of who has the highest absolute score.
Value-added assessment, that seems inherently fair for teachers working in more challenging environments. It shifts the focus from external ranking to the internal health and growth of the students.
Yes. And to execute this, you need a smart, classified system, foundational metrics plus personalized metrics. So for a teacher who's rotating down to a struggling school as part of a support program, we shouldn't only look at their student test progress.
We have to also measure their public value.
Precisely. We need to measure contributions like mentoring and leading the existing teaching team, or introducing high-quality resources from their home institution. This kind of classified approach validates their role as agents of equitable resource distribution.
Okay, shifting gears now to the biggest existential threat, or maybe opportunity in the classroom, AI. If AI can automate content delivery and information retrieval, what is left for us to teach?
This is where we have to focus on what AI cannot automate. Curiosity, resilience, criticality, and kindness.
So curiosity has to be the new literacy.
Absolutely. It must be considered as important as reading and arithmetic. AI shouldn't be seen as a machine that provides answers, but as a partner that provokes better questions.
Which means pedagogy has to evolve past that traditional learn, think, express model.
It needs to shift to learn, think, act. That act component is the new core. We have to elevate learning to the level of no-act unity, where knowledge is applied in the real world. Learning becomes something you do, not something you just passively absorb.
That sounds like breaking down the classroom walls and making the entire community the learning environment.
That's exactly the idea. Look at the city as classroom practices being implemented in Ningbo. They structure their curriculum around real-world projects with no standard textbook answers.
Tell me about one of those projects.
Okay, so consider their SALT curriculum. The students don't just read about salt in a lab. Day 1, they visit the market and the fields. Day 2, they travel to the coast, spend hours under the sun collecting sea salt, experiencing the pain and the saltiness firsthand. Day 3, they visit a chemical factory to understand industrial, non-edible salts.
3 intense days, moving across 3 completely different environments.
And by involving local managers, factory owners, and curators as educational partners, they open the door to the real world. When the body is moving and the context is real, the brain is activated in a fundamentally different way. The ultimate goal is turning the city itself into the biggest classroom.
That requires immense courage from administrators to embrace that openness and to decentralize learning.
It does. And to foster that critical curiosity and action, we have to talk about something that's often dismissed: leisure.
Leisure education, the useless use of time.
Exactly. Leisure isn't just passive rest. It's the white space for the soul. Historically, so many great breakthroughs happen during moments of leisure. Scientists and innovators often find their key insights not at their desk, but while walking, reflecting, or just allowing their minds to wander.
And modern education systems are terrified of empty time. They equate leisure with wasted opportunity.
That's the deviation of a purely utilitarian mindset. When children lack autonomous time to plan their own leisure, they often show reduced frustration tolerance, a lack of passion, and difficulty making choices.
So recognizing the useless use of leisure actually means empowering children. Allowing them to stare into space or wander aimlessly is how they learn to manage time, manage boredom, and build resilience.
You're giving them ownership over their time and their thoughts.
Trust the seed, trust the seasons. Education really is the art of slowness.
Yeah.
This deep dive, it took us from this grand strategy of equity all the way back to the classroom and the teacher's internal life. Whether it's value-added assessment or learn, think, act, the goal is getting education back to its core purpose: raising curious, resilient, and actionable modern individuals.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, whether you are a manager or frontline teacher, here are 3 clear, actionable takeaways.
Let's hear them.
First, for administrators, adopt value-added assessment. Implement classified metrics to ensure rotating teachers are evaluated on their public contributions, mentorship, team leadership, resource development, not just short-term scores. Focus on value over pure volume.
Second, for frontline teachers, seriously assess your position in the 3 levels of professional mastery. Shift your focus from chasing external success to achieving internal maturity. Cultivate that strong, unshakable self-identity that shields you from all the external pressures.
And third, for everyone, in the AI era, prioritize curiosity, action, and leisure. Give your students and yourself that essential white space for the soul, because true wisdom and genuine innovation are born in the soil of useless use.
Fantastic. Education isn't about controlling or ignoring. It's about guarding and watching. Let's all continue to guard and watch over the slow, beautiful process. We'll see you next time.